Yo, what's up guys? You got pokeaim here, and today we are back once again with my buddy EonX. He can say hi.
What is going on, everybody?
Yeah, so we're going to be covering the suspect tests that are going on, the potential suspect tests as well, that will be happening in NU by the time maybe this video goes up. It's going up like Tuesday, so we'll see what happens. And our thoughts on the Pokemon being suspect tested, whether we think they'll be banned or not, just why they're being tested in the tier. And yeah, if you guys enjoy these type of discussion videos, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and we'll get right into it. So Yu is currently suspect testing Latias, Latias being a super threat in the tier. Any just overall opinions? I'll cover it after you say what you have to say.
Yeah, so I will preface this with the fact that I am not very adept at UU right now. I primarily play RU and NU, but Latias in a UU tier without Pursuit, yeah, it looks really annoying. It got Mystical Fire in the Generation Shift to Crown Tundra. It also has Aura Sphere if you really want that, like if you just like have a Death Wish for Dark types or something like that. Draco Meteor is Draco Meteor, you know what it does. It can also run Calm Mind if it really wants to, but it generally just, I feel like it just would rather throw out attacks and then use Recover when it has to. Also has incredible defensive typing to switch into certain Pokemon, certain moves, and being immune to spikes, never a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean you basically hit the nail on the head. But basically the fact that Latias got Mystical Fire is so huge for it now because in previous UU, S rank was Latias and Scizor. Scizor being up there because of its great offensive prowess, also its ability to check the other S rank with Pursuit, which is obviously gone. In fact, right here you see in front of you 3 attacks, Life Orb, Recover. In my opinion, that is the best set. I don't like Calm Mind because you miss out on coverage unless you run Calm Mind 3 attacks. However, if you do that, you miss out on the utility of Latias in being able to check Pokemon like non-Mega Horn Banded Bulu, Terrakion, potentially Hurricane, Defog Salamence, which doesn't always run Draco Meteor. Then, of course, on the defensive side as well, you have like Amoonguss, and then even like Rotom Heat, and also the waters like Keldeo. So this is really nice because it allows you to get that damage off with the Life Orb. Draco is obviously really strong, and the Mystical Fire is probably one of the biggest additions to it because not only is it a 100% way to knock out Scizor, but also just being able to threaten steel types in general without having to run like a Z move like it had to do last generation, like Gigavolt Havoc, in order to dent Scizor or knock it out, beat Primarina, and also knock out like something like, not necessarily Celesteela, but like Empoleon in the UU tier. Obviously UU has shifted quite a bit, but the addition of Mystical Fire is big. Again, not only just for being able to hit steel types too, but also being able to weaken attacks coming out at Latias. For instance, you can go for Mystical Fire on a Primarina, and that'll give you a second hit with Psyshock, so you get like a little bit more, that 11% more, which could be the difference between dealing with that Pokemon
Right.
or not. So, and of course, obviously, Latias has the addition of running choice items if it wants to, which can help check Como, Zeraora to an extent, some Scarfers. I think that's a little bit worse. Now, while usually Latias is seen as, in other tiers, usually Latias is seen as the support mon, UU is the tier that you always see, like the offensive variant, in my opinion.
Right.
And then,
Like I feel like Specs isn't too terrible considering like I said, there's no pursuit, so you're not punished for locking into the wrong move. Like you won't just like instantly go down like
yeah.
as you try to switch out. And the point of Primarina using Mystical Fire on it, not only can it give Latias a chance to beat it, like if it's just barely out of range of Psyshock when it comes in, and you just throw out a Mystical Fire, then now all of a sudden it's in range. But even if you don't knock it into range, it makes it a lot easier for Latias' teammates to switch into like a Moonblast or
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly, and that's the thing. Like this thing's defensive capabilities, defensive stats, and whatnot. Like being able to switch into Rotom Heat is really cool too, and it can basically beat all of its counters, which is really fun. I don't think it's like obscenely broken as well. It's like, even though I just said it could beat all its counters, because it's not like it needs to be in the right situation to beat its counters. That's it. Like
Right,
Spadachirachi can still 1v1 it, but like then you play with spikes plus Mystical Fire, yeah, you could beat it. Um,
right.
and obviously, you have to keep yourself out of range of Bullet Punch. Zero Hours Faster can check it with knockoff and whatnot too. So I mean, there's quite a few things. Like there is counterplay to it, but I understand why. Like the biggest thing is the lack of pursuit. So you saw an OU Ghost types really take over. Then you see Psychic types in UU being very good too. And then Crocodile doesn't have its, and the other Psychic types being like Alakazam, Slowking, things like that. And then
Yeah.
the other thing is that Crocodile, which is still a phenomenal mon in my opinion, it's actually A rank in UU, I just can't pursue, which is so big. So like when you're a Pokemon that can defensively check even Choice Band Terrakion if you want to an extent, it's amazing. So yeah, Latias, the suspect test, I think at least it deserves suspect. Do I think it'll be banned? I'm not entirely sure. I like what it brings to the meta, personally. I like being able to have a tank that can... I mean, it does exactly what it did last gen, except it doesn't need Z moves to beat the Pursuit Choppers because they don't exist. And obviously
it essentially turns defense into offense, and I feel like every tier needs a few of those. It's just a matter of how crazy is that offense? Is that offense indefensible, or can you defend against that offense as long as you play well?
Yeah, like even this set, like it does have checks, like pretty decent checks. Slowking can do it, and Slowking runs heavy duty boots, so doesn't have to worry about it. I mentioned Primarina earlier. Obviously, there's Melison with Ice Shard and stuff like that. There's chance in the tier, which this set cannot break, even with Psyshock, unless it's like Calm Mind plus it. And then if it goes Calm Mind Recover, then it's right into the Formal Slot Syndrome, so it misses out. Obviously, Dracoing is pretty big too. Wait, did your mic come up for a second? I just heard like a plop. You good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Sorry, I don't know if they heard that either, but yeah. So I mean, overall, I think that the suspect test is at least warranted. I would definitely not have quick banned it either. And if I do participate, I'm not sure I'd actually vote ban. I like it as a solid presence in the metagame, and that's about it.
Right.
I like what it offers.
Yeah. Like Latias, like ever since she dropped to you last gen, I feel like you could justify a suspect test for it. I don't think anyone would complain about it, but I mean that's part of the reason you do suspect tests on Pokemon like this. Like you want the player base to explore options to beat it, or options for the Pokemon itself that might be underexplored that could push it over the edge. And so it just gives people a chance to truly see and focus on it, see how truly good it is. Do you need to remove it from the tier for the tier to grow, or is it just fine and just a really, really good Pokemon?
Yeah, honestly. I mean, and it's different than the OU chopping block, because when your suspect test is an OU, you basically banned. Their lower tier suspect tests are different, in my opinion. I feel like they don't actually always result in ban. Speaking of suspects and lower tiers, Thundurus, bro, in the RU tier, why don't you tell me about that?
Yeah, so Thundurus is a very powerful Pokemon in RU. It has been for quite a while, basically ever since it dropped. And I don't think the suspect comes as a surprise. It has two primary sets. We have the Nasty Plot set listed here, where it will just come in on defensive Pokemon that are threatened out by it, like mostly water types and stuff like that. Get up a Nasty Plot. You'll notice this does not have Grass Knot. That is because +2 Focus Blast will deal with the ground types, provided you hit, of course. And then you have your choice of Psychic and even Sludge Wave. I don't have it listed over here, but Sludge Wave can be used over Psychic if something like Sylveon is a problem for you and you just want to outright remove it. I prefer Psychic because it just hits the poison types of the tier, hits stuff like Roserade really hard, which would otherwise offensively check you. So I prefer it for that. And then it also has a pivot set, which is very annoying when you consider what you're switching into Nasty Plot, which you have to respect immediately. Most switch-ins don't like knockoff, and that's what the pivot set runs. It is knockoff U-turn, then typically runs Thunderbolt and either Focus Blast or Grass Knot, depending on what it wants to hit for coverage. So yeah, it's got two really good sets. I'm really glad this is getting suspect tested. I'm not sure yet if it's too strong for the tier. I'm kind of leaning toward yes, but kind of like you with Latias, like I want to play through the suspect test to really get a better feel for it. Like I'm leaning towards it, but like I'm not sold on it per se, if that makes any sense.
No, I mean that makes sense. When I was playing RU, and I haven't played it in like let's say maybe a week or a week or two, so it might have changed a little bit. But when I was playing, I noticed that they had Thundurus on S rank, but I don't know. I never like found it S rank when I was playing versus it, but maybe that was based on the teams I was using. I was using your teams too, just to be fair. But just even looking at what I have, like I had Choice Specs, Regidrago, Magazine. Like I had a whole lot of Pokemon. I had Scarf Mienshao, so I had a whole lot of Pokemon that actually do not like Thundurus very much on this team. But I mean, granted, if it doesn't hit its attacks, it can't really break my squad or what I was using. for the most
Right.
part. But I like that Defiant is on the set too. I mean, it's not like you take advantage of its prankster ability, and I feel like Thunderwave isn't like as much seen currently.
Yeah, I
There's
know.
too many
Well,
good ground types, too many good electrics, too many good dark types too that you can't even use your prankster on. Like you're
yeah.
wasting a turn by doing that. And also, I think
Yeah.
that Defiant's cool because it bluffs the physical pivot set
Yeah,
as well.
and what it also does, it makes sure that Porygon 2 can't recover stall you, especially on the pivot set.
That makes sense.
Because it tracing Prankster would mean it could just recover stall you until you run out of Focus Blast, and then you
That makes
just
a lot
can't
of
do
sense. Yeah, I
anything
like
with
that.
it. Also means Gardevoir can't Prankster you, so like if it's like Specs Healing Wish or something like that.
I
You
can't
block
get it off
that.
before. Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually really cool.
And it also, again, like if they defog now, they have, especially with the pivot set, like that makes your knockoffs and U-turn hit a lot harder.
Yeah.
Like if you switch into a defog.
Yeah, I also like it. Kind of reminds me of Schindler and Black and White UU when we started running Flame Body over Flash Fire. That way we could nuke Porygon with 2 Specs overheats. I remember that.
Right.
So that's really cool. Again, from my experience, I hadn't seen a lot of Thundurus that were actually like too threatening for me. But then again, I guess if they hit their attacks, it makes absolute sense. Just the idea of Thundurus being in RU when like not too long ago was OU/BL/banned. You know, just going in previous years. Like it's just
Yeah.
like power creep is insane right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think one of the reasons I'm not completely sold on it is because I've been liking Diancie a lot
Yeah,
recently in RU as my Stealth Rocker, and that's actually a pretty decent check to Thundurus, all things considered. Like,
yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
data
sure,
plus 2. Yeah.
yeah, like sure, it doesn't necessarily like +2 Thunderbolt, but it can take 1. Sure, it doesn't like knock off, but it can deal with it. So like, I don't think there's a perfect answer to Thundurus, but Nasty Plot I feel has some issues setting up. Like it's pretty frail. It really relies on its defensive typing to really find chances to set up. And even then, it's still outsped by stuff like Noivern and Raikou,
Yeah.
Short Scarf, Zarude, Short Scarf, Mienshao. Like, there's ways to revenge kill the Nasty Plot sets and the pivot set. If you like don't have a Pokemon like a defensive Pokemon that's weak to its coverage, like if it runs Focus Blast or Grass Knot, like DNC doesn't mind. But like if you have Seismitoad and it doesn't have Grass Knot, it's gonna kind of be sitting there for a minute before it really starts getting through the team.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why I kind of want to play through the suspect test more, because I want to like see its counterplay to that.
Yeah.
Because in theory, that counterplay is really strong for it against those defensive teams, but I kind of want to see it in action.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned Raikou, which is really interesting to think about because like the addition of Aura Sphere and Scald should in theory make Raikou better in terms of what it can hit and the accuracy that it goes for. But obviously the Nasty Plot versus Calm Mind there's a huge difference there. Like yeah, you're boosting your special defense, but like +2 in your attack is crazy. And I think Grass Knot makes a big difference as well in what it runs. Because like Seismitoad is like a full stop to the Raikou, whereas this one can break through a lot of its stuff. And obviously, you know, Roserade is a check.
I think the big thing with Raikou, you touched on it, the boosting. That's why Raikou typically runs a pivot set, because Thundurus is just so much better as a booster.
Yeah.
Because Nasty Plot just boosts so much faster and breaks a lot easier.
Yeah.
And Raikou's pivot set can hang around long enough to where once Thundurus is chipped a little bit, and come right in and go for a Thunderbolt to take it out.
Yeah. I mean, knockoff as well. Like it opens up for itself. Like.
Yeah, I was gonna, and you beat me to it again. The other thing, it has knockoff over Raikou. Like those two things, like Nasty Plot, knockoff. And I guess U-turn too to a lesser extent, so you're not blocked by ground types like Seismitoad. Like you can still get momentum off of them. Like that's just really huge for it over Raikou, and why it's ranked a little bit higher, even though Raikou is really good on its own. But Thundurus is definitely a little bit above it just because of the tools it has.
Yeah, no, I agree. I apologize, by the way. You guys hear my dog barking. She's playing, and she has a ball, and she gets so aggressive around it. Like she's like in a good way.
Having a good old time out
there.
there.
She's enjoying herself. So next up we have Sigilyph, which was just suspected in NU and actually banned from the NU tier. And obviously Sigilyph is the type of Pokemon that could really get away with whatever set it wants to, right? Like obviously you have the Calm Mind set, but then you know you have the old school set of the switcheroo, Cycle Shift stuff.
Calm Mind, Cycle
yeah,
Shift,
Specs Tinted Lens as well is something that this mon could do. What do you think about the suspect results?
Yeah, so this was actually a pretty narrow vote. I believe it only got 56% majority, so it's a pretty close vote, and it's
Oh,
pretty easy
just
to see
made it.
why. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just barely made it to getting banned. And it was, we kind of knew it was going to be a split decision, just based on like the feedback from the community. There's quite a few people that felt it was a little too much for the tier, and a lot of people that felt there was just enough counterplay to keep it. Overall, like I think long term this is better. Like I don't think it was necessarily too much at the present moment, but at the same time, it was strong enough to get the suspect test. And considering what may or may not drop from RU like in the next few months, like I don't think there was really anything that was going to change it being good enough to be suspect tested. And the Calm Mind Psycho Shift set, like it just kind of destroys a lot of its defensive checks and counters. And then the offensive Calm Mind, or it could you run Roost 3 attacks or choice specs. Like it could run a lot of faster offensive sets to like overwhelm offense. Like it could even run like Focus Sash, Thunder Wave, and stuff like that to just basically ruin some faster Pokemon your team couldn't deal with, and all of a sudden you can now deal with that offensive Pokemon. So I think its flexibility was where it kind of got to the breaking point. Like I don't think any one set was too much for the tier, but the problem is you have to prepare for all of them, and if you're not, and even at team preview, you don't necessarily know the set.
Yeah.
Like you know, it's probably gonna have Roost and Calm Mind in some capacity, and then from there, what is it? Is it offensive? Is it psycho shifts? Like, what do I need to say? Do I need to focus on revenge killing it, or do I need like a really powerful special attacker to just break through it before it can really get going?
Yeah, because like when I look at Enyu, dude, it doesn't look like when I think of Pokemon that should be suspected, and I look at Pokemon that have no switches in the Enyu tier, like look at Pangoro, look at Choice Band Tyrantrum, look at Golurk, right, and the Rock Polish are just offensive or banded on it too. So it's really interesting. And then of course you have like, you know, Mienshao, which is probably not going to be NU for that much longer, even if it gets banned or not. It'll move up to RU eventually.
Right.
By usage. So it's really just interesting to see that, because it doesn't feel like a mon that's just overwhelmingly broken.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think that's why the vote was so close. Like there was no one set that you just pointed to. It's like, oh man, this is broken. This needs to go, or anything like that. But it was just a combination of things. It had a good speed tier, good starting base power. If it went offensive, it had just enough bulk to kind of hang on against stuff to start setting up with the Psycho Shift set. Like it was just all those things. There was just enough here, just enough there, and all that combined, I think, for enough people at least, pushed it over.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I can definitely see if your balance relies on something like Spadef Caparaja, and then it's constantly heat waving you upon switching, or doing things like that. I can understand why you could get overwhelmed.
Or if it just psycho shifts you immediately.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense in a sense. Like again, when I look at the tier, I see things like Sylveon and freaking Bewear and shoot, like even Salazzle and stuff like that. Like it's interesting. It's really weird. Like you have like Gigalogy too. Like damn. But it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons is that you kind of touched on Spadef Caparaja. Like that's probably the top Pokemon in the tier that is not considered like broken. Like it feels like a very necessary Pokemon on teams for a lot of the threats in its tier. And the fact that Sigilyph just kind of punished that. Like it could either just kind of heat wave repeatedly upon switching if it was offensive, or if you saw Flame Orb and you have a Caparaja as your psychic type check, you know Caparaja is not dealing with that at all.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, I understand why it was a split decision as well. Because, like, I mean, even if I played, I don't know if I can make Sigilyph. I can ban Sigilyph. Like, when I play NU, I never found it overwhelming to an extent. But
yeah, like, me personally, I never found it to be, like, super overwhelming. But a lot like RU, I like Dynasty and NU as my stealth rocker a lot of times. So I feel like that was part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just love Dynasty.
I mean, it's a good mod. It's interesting to see this thing come up, by the way, after Galarian Slowbro left the tier.
Yeah.
Because that mod was just a premier second type, in my opinion. It did the same thing this thing did, but it just sat on everything if it wanted to.
Yeah.
Regen. That was cool. So, moving on, we actually touched on some of the Pokemon that I mentioned, but you have potential NU suspect tests that are coming up. So you talked about Bewear, which I see as S rank in the NU tier. And I like this Childberry set, so you set up on like Pangoro and opposing Bewear and Mienshao, or you can back up. So you want to talk a little about Bewear?
Yeah, so the next few Pokemon we're going to go over, basically the NU Council has basically selected 4 Pokemon that they feel are suspect worthy, and are just kind of letting the community give feedback on what they feel are the most pressing issues, which I think is a good move. I feel like most tiers really should kind of do this if they don't already, because community feedback is a key thing. Like it helps you to understand like where your player base is thinking, like why they think certain things should be suspect tested. And Bewear is pretty easy to see why. It has a lot of defensive utility with Fluffy. It can switch into Caparaja. It can do ludicrous things with this set, like set up on Choice Band, Pangoro, Close Combat, which you should not be able to do when you're weak to it.
Yeah.
And like that part's just crazy. Boggles my mind. Barely does 50%.
That's insane.
Yeah. So like basically, it's very easy to see why this is getting attention for a suspect test, because it's faster than Pangoro. If it's Jolly, I believe it barely outspeeds Modest X-Cloud, which is another powerful wall breaker in the tier that has limited switches. It's really great when your Sweeper outspeeds it if it's just one to KO it with Drain Punch. And yeah, like it's just really good. Capitalizes on the fact that there aren't a ton of fire and flying types. Like yeah, there's Arcanine, there's Talonflame, there's Salazzle, but the latter, which you're not switching that in ever.
Yeah.
But Arcanine has risen quite a bit. Talonflame has really risen a lot the past couple of weeks because of Caparaja Bewear cores and how well it does against those. Like I've seen some Caparaja starting to run Rock Slide just because Talonflame is that good against that core. So yeah, like Bewear very responsible for some meta trends. So it's easy to see why it's getting suspect attention. It's just really good, really hard to stop once it gets going. Typical fairy types don't like dealing with it. Typical poison types don't like dealing with it. And it can check some of the strongest Pokemon in the tier because of its ability.
Yeah, I mean, basically hit it, and then like even then, I think SD is its best set, honestly. If I'm going Choice Band, I'll be real, I'll use Pangoro over that because I could just click Close Combat and not care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And obviously Gunk Shot and things like that too. Yeah, without having to I risk accuracy with Gunk Shot, but I don't have to risk my HP. So I do think this is Bewear's best set when I was using it as well. It was very easy to set up, and the tier is really... I don't want to say passive, because the tier is not passive at all. But the Pokemon that do damage to this Mon, because of just fluffy ability and stuff, they're really passive. Like the Mons you're setting up on, they're not doing anything. You touched on Caparaja, which is important. Mienshao is another one, obviously, because of Chople. I also like Lum, but I like Choppleberry a lot as well, just in general. And then just being able to just do so much damage. And its base 60 speed actually is pretty good. Faster than Pangoro is the big one, for sure. And... yeah, I mean, I do think that it is at least suspect worthy in a sense that it's one of those mons. Like I touched on it with Sigilyph before when I was talking about Pokemon that I feel like don't have very good switch-ins. When you have perfect coverage like this mon, you know, it makes sense why it would be looked at.
And I feel like the biggest thing for it is it doesn't necessarily need to set up to really deal
damage.
Like Double Edge, like Double Edge is a 120 base power stab move, and
you could use Close Combat too if you don't want to drain.
Yeah, and once you set up, like Drain Punch keeps you healthy against like repeated physical attacks. This also switches into Tyrantrum really well.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, like you brought that up earlier, but definitely a big thing for.
I'm really high on that mon. That mon is fantastic. If it lands, it's fantastic.
Yeah, right.
Because that's the thing. Like Fluffy Bewear takes it better than like some steel types. Like just like to give you an example.
Better than Caparaja,
that's for sure. Exactly. And.
But yeah, like it's a really good Pokemon. It's got good defensive utility with its typing and ability. And I'll kind of end it on this, but defensive Arcanine commonly runs enough speed to outspeed Jolly Bewear. You don't do that unless you're one of the few Pokemon that reliably
warrants it. Yeah. You need to be able to do it. Yeah, makes sense. And even then, dude, defensive Arcanine could still lose to it. as well. Either missing
Yeah,
Will-O-Wisp or just like Flamethrower not killing, which it doesn't, and then just doing.
yeah. I actually run Overheat for that reason. just to one hit KO.
That makes sense.
But where like from full, I don't have to worry about it. If it gets to +2 when I'm too low on health to take a hit, doesn't matter. I still one shot it.
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense. Even though you still risk missing.
Run that tech. It might save your life, or if it misses, it might ruin your life.
Yeah, you'd be like, it's not worth it. You get no damage off on it. We have Cresselia here. I like that stored power is added here as well. Though I do see Calm Mind, Moonlight, Moonblast sub. Is that actually like a set that's more ran just mono Moonblast sometimes?
Yes, mainly because there are not a lot of good like fairy resist that beat Cresselia. Like you think Bronzong, it relies on status. You think Kaparaja, that's pretty easy to wear down throughout a match. And that's pretty much it as far as steel types are concerned in Inu. And then like your poison types are more offensive and are all generally on the special side aside from Drapion, which and Toxic, both of which are neutral to Moonblast anyway. So typically I have the Keyberry set listed because once you get hit with a physical move, you get +1 defense. And then you Calm Mind up a couple of times. It is incredibly difficult to break. I have enough speed here for Jolly Bewear. That way, if worse comes to worse and you need to deal good damage to that in a pinch, you can do that. And then you can also run Culverberry, which will obviously help you against knockoff and other random dark moves like Darkest Lariat from Bewear. And fun fact, Cresselia is not one-hit KO'd by Choice Band Pangoro's knockoff, which is ridiculous.
I mean, that's just like freaking Cress. Yeah, and Pangoro's like no slouch. I mean, you see it right there on Potential Suspect list. That's one of my favorite Choice Band mods to use ever.
Yep. But yeah, Cresselia is one of the defensive Pokemon right now because I brought this up a couple of times, but just like with pretty much any good slow stat booster, like Cresselia, Galarian Slowbro, Suicune, etc., like even if you can't sweep with them, like if you don't get that opening in the sweep, or the opponent plays well enough to where like you just can't sweep with them, you still get defensive utility. You're blanket checking so many Pokemon because you have amazing defenses, like 120, 120, 130 defenses. Like that's insane. That's like I know Toxapex has low HP, but it has higher defenses. That's like Toxapex level minus 2 generator. Like that's just ridiculous, and it's down here in India. So
it's crazy to see the addition of stored power, like how much it did.
Yeah, I feel like the next suspect is between Bewear and Cresselia. I feel like those are the two consensus most troublesome Pokemon in the tier, generally. Not to take away from the next two we're going to go over. They're also very powerful in their own right, but I feel Bewear and Cresselia are slightly better than those two just because they're a little bit more consistent and troublesome to deal with.
It makes sense. If it's running sub, you can't really deal with it with status because all the status mons can't break it. And then you have like Registeel and RU, so it can't come down there and go for double seismic toss to break its subs and wear it out, which it actually could get stalled out of anyway. Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting though because like when I think of Cress and NU, like you're looking through the entire tier as well. The best dark type is Pangoro, and obviously Moonblast absolutely nukes that thing. So it and then you have Guzzlord, which again Moonblast does so much, and even Zoroark doesn't come in at +1. So it's really interesting to look at that. Like damn, it makes sense why Crest is so good, even if its best attacking moves aren't even that great. Like look at the other dark types. You have Scrafty, Moonblast. Like there's so much going for this mon. It makes a lot of sense why this Pokemon is super solid, and even the poison types like Vileplume doesn't break its sub, so even if +6 isn't doing anything, it can't shrimp sap back anymore. So, yeah, I mean, it completely makes sense. Like, why this mon would be overwhelming defensively for, and I like that. I like the fact that like they're taking into account defensive mons too, because Crest is not an offensive presence, but it can become one pretty easily.
Yeah, definitely.
Pretty easily, and even though its special attack becomes like only like 600, maybe 700, whatever.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough when you can't kill it. Yeah,
it's going to be insane.
Yeah, exactly. So it's tough to kill in that regard. Now we have Mienshao next, and I really love Mienshao. I love the fact they gave a close comment. Not that I mean, I love reckless high jump kicks, but nah, you don't go for them now. You definitely don't go for them now. Then again, though, if you're banded reckless, like even Vileplume is going to struggle to switch in on you. But for the most part, we see a Life Orb / Choice Scarf set with close combat knockoff U-turn, either Poison Jab or Stone Edge. Obviously, Poison Jab giving you the reliable hit versus Sylveon, whereas Stone Edge giving you something for Talonflame upon switching, amongst other flyers. But I think the big one is obviously Talonflame as well. But I do personally think, like I said, that Mienshao will be moving up to RU eventually. So regardless of the suspect test, I think it'll be RU anyway.
Right.
Even I don't, but we're doing like suspect tests based on, or we're doing tier shifts now based on the normal one, right? So it's every 3 months. So the next tier shift
every
would be
3 months.
Yeah, it would be April, if I'm not mistaken, or
Yep.
yeah,
April.
So April would be that, which means that Pokemon don't rise until April. However, they do still fall. We do have quick drops still going on, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that means that Mienshao will either be deemed ban worthy from NU for a little bit before it actually pulls up to the RU tier in what I'm assuming would be April. Anyway,
right.
The pros of it, obviously, being out of the other two fighters that are alongside it, being faster is a big thing, right? Being fast and even like defensive Arcanine, and being able to, obviously Stone Edge also hits something like Golisopod too, but being able to pivot around with Regenerator, I think, is the big thing as well. You can even see Assault Vest if you wanted to, though I don't think it's as good in the NU tier as it is in the RU tier. But again, just Regenerator plus hard hitting goes such a long way for this Pokemon. It really does. And knockoff is it's a good blessing. Like, Darkest Lair, it's cool from Bewear, obviously ignoring defense raises and stuff like that. Look at Keyberry Crest. But being able to knock off with Mienshao, like, you're losing your item it's huge. It's big.
Yeah. That's one of the big things for Mienshao. Now I've got Life Orb as the primary set listed because that's the one that's been getting a lot more attention lately, because it really just kind of does one thing, and unless you have Vileplume or Talonflame, you can't really deter it from doing that. That's just using knockoff really into U-turn, because pretty much every offensive Pokemon is not willing to switch into a potential close combat, and every defensive Pokemon in the world that wants to switch into Mienshao does not appreciate knockoff into U-turn. Except for like Vileplume or Talonflame, and even Talonflame not really going to appreciate losing the boots. But by that same token, there's a 30% chance you're getting hit with status whenever you hit them. That's why they can deter Mienshao from doing that. Otherwise, it can just kind of do that freely whenever the heck it wants to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just one of those like crazy mons to switch into, and I like that. Even in lower tiers, you have your Zapdos and your Moltres, right? AKA Talonflame and Vileplume with the Effect Spore.
Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that that's how you really deter from it, and it makes sense why, again, the fighters are the scariest in the tier, because they overwhelm all the defensive types in the tier.
Yeah.
Fighting such a great typing.
The one thing I'll note, the reason we have Poison Jab listed on Life Orb is because the Life Orb boost is enough to 2-hit KO Sylveon as it switches in through Protect. Whereas with Choice Scarf, you don't have enough power to do that. But because you outspeed Talonflame, if worse comes to worse, you can come in after it kills something and just wreck its life with Stone Edge.
Yep. So it's again just a solid Pokemon, and the reason we mentioned Vileplume as well is because, like I said, you can't touch it freely because of its Effect Spore, guys. So it's just something.
You go night or get hit with paralysis.
Yeah, exactly.
Poison is actually not that big of a deal for Mienshao because of Regenerator, but obviously getting put to sleep is.
It's terrible, man. You turn out of the game and you're sleeping in your Pokeball after. Like, you can't even break a turn. Right. You don't even break burn your initial turn, which is insane to think about.
And obviously getting paralyzed, you lose all your speed. And even though Mienshao has Regenerator that outlasts a lot of its checks and counters, it's not very good defensively, as you can tell.
Yeah, not at all. So, I mean, though Assault Vest can be ran in RU if you want to, just because it can pivot in on a random move and just get it all back. Just because it's being able to. But we have my favorite fighting type in the tier, which is Pangoro, and there's not a lot to say about this thing. Its biggest drawback is the fact that it's 58 base speed. Like, imagine they gave it base 60 or base like 65. Like, you better sit down, Bewear. But obviously, Scrappy is incredible in this tier because it just means it doesn't care if you're a ghost. It doesn't care what your typing is. It's going to click close combat, which is amazing. The other comparable mon in the tier is like Exploud on the special side versus what this thing can do on the physical side. a Gunk Shot nukes Sylveon, and if Sylveon wants to be faster than this, it needs to run a lot of speed, like max neutral speed, if it wants to be faster than Pangoro. So, and even then, I can't run a Resist Berry because knockoff does too much. Even close combat is like 30-something% to Sylveon, so it's just insane. Then the tier doesn't have any close combat plus knockoff switch-ins. I think another big thing is that Scrappy blocks Intimidate, so you can't even beat it with like defensive Arcanine or something because you will get blown away. Which is really, really cool to see. And then we have Bullet Punch as the last move. Now, I don't think Bullet Punch is always needed, even though the little chip is there.
Like the first 3 moves are the 3 moves you need.
Yeah, after that, you can run anything.
Bullet Punch is basically there in case you just absolutely have to revenge kill something that's gotten out of control, and you just need to chip the last little bit of itself off, and you have nothing left to outspeed it.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen Parting Shot, though for the most part you want to click one of the first 3 moves every time anyway. But I've seen Parting Shot, I've seen Random Thunder Punch as well for like a defensive Mantine. And that's like basically all I've seen ran on this. I don't know if you've seen anything different. I'm sure you could put Facade on it too if you wanted to, just because if you get statused, why the hell not? You know, you have Scrappy, you hit everything anyway, so... Well, besides that...
something else I've considered trying on it, because this is something that's been rising a bit to kind of deal with Pangoro, and that's itemless Vileplume. That way it can switch into knockoff freely, like take 2 knockoffs, Strength Sap off the damage. You can run Fire Punch in that last slot and just say no, I don't care.
Yeah, Fire Punch probably better actually, because it hits, you hit grasses, but you'll hit steals as well, so that's really good.
Yeah, but otherwise, Pangoro has very limited switch-ins, if any at all. The main thing, like he's still holding it back, is its speed, and I feel like that's kind of gotten a little bit more important as Inu has gone along, as more and more wall breakers have kind of risen up to the forefront, like Tyrantrum, Exploud. Like, these are wall breakers that outspeed Pangoro, so a lot of times I kind of treat it like I do Zydog and Aryu, where I don't really care too much about finding a foolproof defensive check because, like I'm gonna find that.
Yeah, you know, but
what I can do is make it really difficult for it to switch in, and basically turn it more into a revenge killer slash like wall breaker. Like if my defensive Pokemon KO something, then it comes in, and that's fine. I can just sack something, then bring in my own faster wall breaker, and either force it back out to claim a KO or take it out.
Exactly.
Right
I mean, Pangoro excels at coming in on Bronzong.
Which is why I don't run it that often. Which is why another reason I like the answer.
Basically like this mon excels at coming. I mean, between this Mienshao and Bewear, this is the scariest Pokemon to let in for free. But Bewear's speed tier as well as Mienshao's make a huge difference in comparison. So it's easier to bring them in, as well as Bewear's bulk and Mienshao's ability to regenerate and, again, be faster than most threats coming in. But this mon's a demon. I love it. At worst, it's the 3rd best fighting type, and you can only say it's the 3rd best fighting type because Bewear and Mienshao are just that good in their own right. Yeah, exactly. It's not an indication that Pangoro is bad. It's just Bewear is amazing because of that defensive utility, and Mienshao often just outlasted checks. And then Pangoro just comes in and says, I don't care about your ghost types, I don't care about your intimidate, I'm clicking close combat, I don't care. Basically, just it's a demon. That's exactly what it is. So, but it's a slow demon, which means it's manageable. Roserade was quick banned from the PU tier. And it's really cool to think about because Roserade is a type of Pokemon that doesn't have anything now to hit steel types. But when that Leaf Storm comes out, bro, and if you even look at the steel types in the PU tier, they're not great. Mm-hmm. They're just not great, right? Like once Duraludon left, like that was the only good steel type that could handle Roserade, I feel like. And even then, bro, like Life Orb Leaf Storm is probably a 2-hit KO, if not like close to it, because you have Silvally Steel, which has no recovery. Sand Slash, Badef probably a decent switch in at that point. Absol gets nuked. Togedemaru is just spiked on and doesn't really care. So like it's just interesting to think. Really crazy to see like Roserade and PU, by the way. Just again, like insane. It's very good in RU right now because of all the electric types that it can check. I mean, that's actually the set I listed, the set that I feel is best for it in RU right now. Because Synthesis lets it deal even with Pivot Thundurus. Yeah.
Because then you're still able to outlast it. Because pivot sets do not run psychics; they don't have the luxury of doing that. Whereas Nasty Plot obviously does, and you're ruined by that. But we went over why you run psychic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roserade is actually very good in RU right now. I would not be surprised if come April it just goes from PUBL to RU because it's very solid up there. Actually better in RU than in MU right now, just because of the makeup of the tier. Because it's more electric and ground and water focused, whereas you have NU, which is more like fighting and steel and fire focused.
Yeah.
And obviously the fighters don't want to come in on Roserade, but it doesn't handle the steals that well, as you already mentioned.
Yep.
And the steals are actually good in NU. You have Caporaja, you have Bronzong. And then obviously you have Talonflame and Arcanine. They have reliable recovery, so even repeated sludge bombs not gonna be as much of an issue for them. So yeah, like I feel it just does better in RU. It's not bad in NU, don't get me wrong, but I feel Vileplume just kind of is better.
Yeah, I mean, what Vileplume does, obviously, like this is a spiker at the end of the day. But even then, like I feel like you don't have a lot of free switches with this Pokemon, even on defensive Pokemon. Like even like Sylveon can Mystical Fire you and just make in 1v1 you, in that sense, right? So like I don't know, I don't like spikes as much in the NU tier as well. From what I've been playing, I think the defoggers are pretty decent in the tier, and I think that the offensive presence is really hard to give like the first like just get that layered up for free type of thing.
And you also have good like hazard removal overall in NU because like even with Rapid Spin you have like Blastoise, you have Delmise, you have Starmie. So yeah, like just the meta in NU doesn't treat Roserade very well, but the meta in RU, it loves the meta in RU.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting to think about a Pokemon that's like worse in a lower tier than it is in a higher tier. But I mean, that's just the makeup of the team. If the best Pokemon in a higher tier, are like 5 water types, and the best Pokemon in the lower tier are 5 fire types, obviously it's going to be better in a meta game where they're 5 water types and they're 5 fire types. Just to explain that.
It kind of feels like Gastrodon has felt his entire competitive career.
Yes, always whatever in the lower tier is better in the higher tier. Though it's good, I like Gastrodon a lot. But
yeah,
again,
no doubt.
I think there's so many, even like take old NU for example, there were so many waters I'd rather use over Gastrodon, like Wishy-Washy for instance, and they do different things, but Wishy-Washy just provides more for the team. And then there's one more thing, which is a PU suspect test going on in the PU tier, obviously for Virizion. So apparently this is the most commonly used Virizion, followed by Swordsdance, mixed with Leaf Storm, Close Combat, Stone Edge, and Air Slash. Stone Edge lets you hit your fire types, like Talonflame and your flying types. Leaf Storm is a nice little nuke coming off of its base 90 special attack, hitting Pokemon like even defensive Weezing for a lot of power. You have Air Slash for opposing Virizion as well as grass types in general, and of course Close Combat is your fighting stab. So overall it looks like it's pretty overwhelming in the tier. I mean, it makes sense because the tier's also like not as fast as other tiers. Just like looking at it, like, it's not as fast. Like,
there's also much more limitations on the fairy and poison types. And outside of Talonflame, there really isn't a faster common flying type that wants to necessarily switch into Virizion's stab moves. Whereas like in RU you've got Crobat and Noivern, and NU you've got like Talonflame and I'm sure a couple others I'm missing. You've got plenty of stuff like Arichka, like Salazzle. But down
you have defense, like, you have defensive checks too, like Cress. Like there's a lot of stuff down here. But like if you even just look through this tier and just look through the 4 moves this Virizion has, it's like bodying most of the Pokemon. Or like even the defensive Pokemon don't want to come in on its attacks like at all. Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting to think that Virizion is crazy here, especially because this tier looks almost a lot like NU that I played before too. And then like it didn't look like Virizion was crazy before, but it's just really interesting to think.
Yeah, and you mentioned the mix set. It can also run Swords Dance, which is also very powerful with Close Combat, Leaf Blade, and Sin Headbutt.
Yeah, or Stone Edge.
You could opt to run Stone Edge for like Datu and Charizard, but yeah, Sin Headbutt, like it smacks Weezing, smacks Toxicroak, still hits, and obviously has that nice 20% flinch chance. You never know when you'll need that to bail you out of the game. and it even has Calm Mind. Now I feel Calm Mind is definitely a step below
Yeah.
mixed and Swords Dance sets, but the fact that I can effectively run that is definitely, you could definitely say something for that.
I mean, the drawback of Calm Mind is your moves are weaker and your best move has 70% accuracy. So like that's just there's a whole lot to go over that. Yeah, exactly. I mean that's a big thing.
Not as good as your strongest move being
Focus,
a 130 base power move or a 120 base power move.
Exactly. Like Focus Blast is good, but it's 30% chance to miss. You're not using Leaf Storm on Calm Mind for the most part. You're using Giga Drain for recovery, and then you're running Air Slash as your special coverage, or maybe you're mixing it up with Stone Edge still, so you can hit something like Talonflame upon switch. And I feel like at that point, just we're mixed. Why even waste your time clicking Calm Mind if they're going to bring in their best edge to it?
Exactly. You know? That's kind of why I feel it's pretty far below the other two sets.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think Virizion is going to survive the suspect test.
Not at all. Not at all. Look at the tier. Like if you look at the tier, it doesn't look like there's nothing. Like I'm just looking at it. There's nothing.
Yeah, I feel like I can kind of draw parallels. Like the recent Sigilyph suspect test, there was a very real chance it would not have been banned, and that was reflected in the vote. Like it was only 56% to ban. Virizion, I'm expecting to be closer to
majority. Yeah, this is definitely going to be a majority. Again, like you look at I think the biggest thing as well is that Virizion is bulky, right? Base 91 HP is nice. It's above average or around average. That's probably above average, seeing as how the last two generations we had really low HP stats, and then. Base 129 special defense as well. The Pokemon that are faster than Virizion or around its speed tier are special attackers besides Talonflame. So it being able to take hits, Heliolisk hits, Galvantula, whatever, and threaten them back with close combat, Stone Edge, respectively. Makes sense. You get this Mon in, you click button. That's what this Pokemon does. Even from just like some random replays and stuff like that, or just watching some PU games on the ladder, you'll see. So it's interesting to like. This is definitely, I don't think this thing makes it at all. I don't even think it makes sense as well. It's very oppressive in that regard.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Great speed tier, good bulk to set up with, good power. Like, it's everything you want in a Pokemon, really.
Yeah, it is. And it's crazy that's Virizion. So it's nice to see that Virizion is actually, doing something in a lower tier and being crazy, whereas you've probably never seen Virizion be wild. Like, I remember old Gen N using everything. Swords Dance was cool, Combat was cool, but it was never broken at all.
Yeah, like, even back in Oras, RU, where I feel it was at its peak, like, it got some attention, but, like, it never felt overwhelming. Like, yeah, it was probably the best sweeper in that tier, but I didn't necessarily feel like, oh, man, I have no way to deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why things weren't banned at points. But
Leaf Storm was a huge addition to it.
Yeah, Leaf Storm was big. We had to use Giga Drain, Focus Blast, Hidden Power Ice back then, or Fire. Fire was a really interesting choice too, because obviously you lowered your speed IV, but being able to not have to risk Focus Blast is pretty cool. Still hitting opposing Virizion and things like that, like even Feral Seed going down and stuff like that. But I think Ice was overall just stronger as well for hitting flyers and dragons and everything. But I think that covers all the Pokemon that we wanted to talk about for this thing. So a lot of stuff to look out for the tiers coming up. I think you wanted to give a shout out to Eternally, right?
Yeah, so recently, this was earlier this week, long time in your tier leader, and by long time, I mean over 1,000 days, which is insane to think about, someone being a tier leader for that long, but Eternally did announce that he was stepping away. From Pokemon in general, like I said, he's been tier leader for over 1,000 days in NU, he's on NU Council for over 1,300 days. And it's just crazy to think about, like, all the time and effort he's put into building NU, the community there, and everything like that. And I feel bad for whoever has to try to fill those shoes, because those are pretty dang big shoes to fill. But
it's fine. I mean, the tier, it's great to see someone who's actually stuck around for a long time, especially with, like, even me when I was one of the OU tier leaders alongside. I didn't stay for too long. I didn't, like, even council and things like that. So it's really cool to see someone who's led it and done well, and also played in tournaments, though I know Eternally is more so managing at times now, if I'm not mistaken. But I always enjoy...
He was more a manager, yeah.
Yeah, I always enjoy people who are actually involved in a tier that make decisions and are just making decisions based on posts and Theorymon. I think that if you actually play the tier, like, then you can qualify for talking about what should be banned, how the tier should follow.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the big things that I've kind of noticed, because he did post like an announcement thread that he was leaving, but one of the big things I've noticed that pretty much everyone that has posted in there like talks about what Inu was like when he became tier leader, like what it was like before he became tier leader and what it is now, night and day. And that just goes to show like how much work he put into it, not just like the tier itself, but building the community to make
Should have banned Ninjas though. Should have banned Ninjas during the Isle of Armor. It was insane that when I played Snake Draft, all of us had to prep for literally every tournament player complained about that Pokemon. That's the only thing I don't like. That's the only thing I don't like. But I mean, now it's not broken down.
If he's been tier leader for over 1,000 days, and that's the one thing he didn't do right, then he's doing pretty good.
It would have made Snake Draft so much easier if that mon was banned. Damn it. Whatever, I still did well. But yeah, I had to put that in there because I remember that. Like,
no, yeah.
But it's cool. I wonder who's gonna take it over. Maybe Rabia or anybody in the actual tier. I don't know if they already named.
Yeah, I think Arabia was already like co-tier leader. I'm not sure like if like who's going to be that second tier leader now, because I think Rabia was either co-tier leader or already like
wait,
to be tier leader.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think you're 100%. I'm so sorry, Rabia, if you're watching this too, because you're my boy.
But yeah, like I said, like whoever steps into that role, they've got big shoes to fill, but it's been left in a really good place for them. So I just wanted to give that shout out because I feel it's good to recognize like people like that just do such a good job with the community that pretty much everyone that has, like I said, everyone that has posted in that farewell thread that Eternally posted has just said something positive about him, whether it's an experience or just the overall makeup of the tier between when he started and how it is now and how much better it is.
Yeah, I'm really mean. I just should have banned Ninjas during Isle of Armor. Good riddance. Nah, jokes aside. Nah, for sure. NU is a great tier. I think NU's been a great tier for a long time now. Actually, usually one of my most enjoyable tiers during a generation. So I'm happy to wish the best for them as they continue playing Pokemon, being on the site and not doing anything at all, but just not being tier leader.
Yeah,
because it's really hard to. It's really hard to leave, man.
I just want to say one thing. You leave right when I finally join your tier. Come on.
Hey man, it's time to step up.
Yeah.
Overall, thank you everybody for watching, listening, whatever you guys wanted to do. Appreciate y'all. Have a fantastic day. Check out my buddy Eon. You can check out his Twitter if you want to talk to him. He is a great person and always very interactive as well. So obviously helping out communities. Just recently came back and already helping out NU and RU on the slates, right? Like on the councils, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least at least you discussed
with the
stuff,
viability
right?
ranking.
Yeah.
Viability
That's what I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
Yeah, like I'm viability rankings with both tiers and quality control with RU,
which is basically console, man. Like if they talk about stuff, you're probably in the chat. Like I don't know how much Smogon has changed since I was around actually like helping run the site and stuff, but definitely something like that. But I appreciate everything you're doing. Obviously, I hope you guys like these type of videos where we just discuss and talk, competitive discussions and whatnot. And let me know by leaving a like, subscribing. On my way to 300K. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Bye.